How are you? Well, good. I'm glad you're here. I feel like I'm on the comedy show today. How many of you are from this library? Two, three. Thanks for having us.
Okay. Hi.
This isn't very loud. No, you just have to hold it close.
Can I talk loud enough? Can you hear me?
I'm not sure if we're recording in the streaming though. I think.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi. My name is Jessie, and I work at Bywater Solutions, and I am joined with our fabulous partners and Koha users here today to talk about a new twist on the Koha OPAC. I'll let them introduce themselves.
Bob Benhoff from the Colorado Library Consortium. AspenCat is the union catalog that we run.
I'm Christopher Davis. I'm with the Uinta County Library. We are running Aspen Discovery, which is flavor.
Not to be confused with AspenCat.
Not to be confused with Aspen. Yeah.
Both have Aspen, different things. Yeah. AspenCat is not running
Aspen Tree is very beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm Mark Noble. I'm from Attorney League Technologies.
And so we got together and we thought this would be a good presentation to talk about at koha-US because we have lots of libraries that are starting to use a discovery layer on top of the Koha OPAC to enhance and make it a lot easier for their patrons to access information. And so what we're going to do today is kind of give you some examples about why these two libraries decided to switch and use that discovery platform. And then Mark will talk from the perspective of the developer, and then I'll talk a little bit about like Koha and how we can make that happen with the discovery platform.
Anybody not know what a discovery layer is? Really quick. Need a rundown on that? Okay. Good.
So I'll give a quick history of Discovery, Aspen, and Pika. So Marmot started UFind, I think we did it about 10 years ago. And so it started, Jimmy Thomas became the new director. They did a search for discovery layers, a search for ILSs really, and figured out what they really wanted was a discovery. So we spent quite a bit of time. We started with UFind. UFind at that time was highly targeted to academics. Marmot is a consortium of 30, I think now, members that are a combination of schools, public libraries, and academics. So they needed it really customized to work better for public libraries, work really well for a consortium. So I was their contractor for that. I worked for them in a contractor role for a couple of years. Also, while I was doing that, I was consulting for Douglas County, Wake County, Anythink libraries. So did a lot with like the Douglas County model in UFind at that point. Decided that I really enjoyed Marmot. I would go to work for them full time. Jimmy's a great person to work for. Retired now, but thank you for all of the service for the libraries. Went to work full time for Marmot. We continued to build on everything that we've done while I was contractor. The libraries that I had been consulting for wanted to continue to provide service for them. So we introduced the concept of discovery partners at Marmot, which were associate members, non-voting members in the consortium that we just provided ViewFind for. After we did that for a few years, we realized it was really confusing because we had diverged pretty far from ViewFind, and people were confused as to when you asked for ViewFind, what were you getting? So we renamed it to Pika, which is what we have now and what they have now. About a year ago, I wound up leaving Marmot. Jimmy retired. There's some differences in how we wanted to grow Pika. So I started Aspen Discovery based off the work that was done on Pika. And have a bunch of new enhancements that we'll talk about today. So it's a more commercially supported discovery layer where type is still within the realms of the consortium. Oh, so then my goals for Aspen Discovery, just go over those real quick. Maximizing patron usage of all library materials. So libraries have such great collections. There's such a wealth of information there. All of the archival materials, genealogy materials, e-content providers that aren't as widely used, really want to make sure that all material is integrated in the catalog and easy to discover, as well as doing some like read-alike, some explore more, to where when you land on a book about, say, the Pueblo flood, you can also find all of the great materials that the library has in their archive. Complete integration with the underlying ILS and e-content provider, so everywhere that we can do an API integration, all the functionality of Koha is available within Aspen Discovery. E-content providers, we'll go through that some more, but really all of the major e-content providers that provide APIs are all integrated, and working really, really hard to keep all of that up to date as they change things, make sure that we're updated as well. We want it to be super easy for patrons to use. So over the course of the last 10 years, I've had the great luck to sit down with literally hundreds of patrons, trying to make sure that the catalog works the way they expect it to, make sure that it's easy for them to use, that they understand libraries. Like we're getting a lot of questions about even what is a hold, and it's something we take for granted, but we can do things to help patrons understand our terminology as well. So lots of big changes as well as small changes. And then every library is different, so we want it to be super customizable so that it's branded for you. For consortia, that also means it can be branded individually. So elementary schools don't have to have the same functionality enabled as public libraries, and even two different public libraries in the same consortium don't have to have the same brand. And then, of course, it needs to be affordable. So we all want to do as much as we can with our money. And so I want to make sure it's affordable for everybody.
Okay, so thank you. 10-year shopping list. 10 years ago or so, my boss and I, Sam Passy, by the way, in the program it says Sam Passy, but I'm Christopher. I've taken the place of Sam Passy. It's just, you know, he's a lot better than we got. But anyway, we wanted a one-stop shopping experience. Yes, so anyway, you can read through that. I won't read it for you, but I will go over those individually.
So we started our search for Discovery Layer a little bit before Uinta did. We were at the time on Librarian Koha, and if you have some issues with the current catalog that Community Koha is providing, I assure you it is leaps and bounds better than the Librarian Koha version. So we were kind of desperate, and one of the reasons is we have a lot of libraries, 114. We're still growing. We have a mix of academic, school, and public here in Colorado. We have lots of migrations coming in. A lot of those migrations are from standalone systems that haven't had the best access to cataloging practices or records. So a lot of stuff kind of comes in, incorrectly cataloged brief, all sorts of problems. We have a lot of duplicates. And then we have, just because the amount of materials we have, there's a lot of legitimately distinct records as well. But on our staff side, as it is a mess to do a search. And what we were having was the catalog for patrons was a mess as well. Very difficult for patrons to find what they were looking for. Kind of defeats the whole purpose of having an online catalog if nobody can find things. So I just wanted to show you a little bit. Mark's going to talk a little bit more about how this actually works, but just doing a search for Tom Sawyer on our catalog brings up 2,054 results. So that's a lot. And you can see a lot of different records and stuff like that. Very difficult to navigate through. once we move to Pica, we've got something that looks like this, where things are grouped together. So the mess is kind of hidden. And if you open this up where you click show editions, you can actually, if somebody wants a particular edition, they can still get it. The operating assumption is most people want to just place a hold. They just want to get the book. If they want a particular edition, they can scroll through all this and find it. But what this hides is there are, I counted up, there's 78 different things that are grouped just in the book records. So if you think about all those as individual records that a patron has to sort through and pick one, it is incredibly problematic for them to do so. It's asking a lot of them. This, they just search Tom Sawyer, they place a hold on Tom Sawyer, or they see, in this case, that it's on shelf. In the upper right-hand corner, you can see it's green, it's on shelf. They know it's at the library. Much easier. And our mess exists, and it's always going to exist to some extent, no matter what cleanup efforts we do. But at least it's hidden a bit from the not on the back end, but on the patron-facing discovery layer.
Yeah, so kind of the way we're doing that, we recognize, as Bob said, that there's a lot of different reasons that those records exist, and we wanted to leverage that, group things together, like Bob said, so that patrons can find what they want. We're doing that largely based off title, author, format. There's a lot of tricks and complexity that goes into that. It's a fun problem to play with, but really trying to group those same materials. Do we have an example of Harry Potter? Yeah. So like Harry Potter here shows up, we get the book, what it's doing in the consortium too, so it's trying to get the most available copy to show first. So if you're in Uinta, it's going to show the Uinta's copy, not Basin's copy, or sorry, not Duchesne's copy, as it's here.
This is another branch. This is here.
Yep. We see then the audiobooks, the audiobooks, the ebooks. Those will also be separated out by e-content type as well. So if you had the audiobook from Overdrive,
Does anybody not know what fervor means? I know. Well, basically, he's saying that there are, kind of the idea from conception all the way down to an item, and we wanted to be able to group items together.
Okay. So relevancy, of course, is something super important to library catalogs, and Harry Potter is a great example search for it. So normally, when you do a search for Harry Potter in almost all OPACs, you'll get what we get in Koha now, which is the music collection, the film music collection, the Magic Guidebook, Journey Through the History of Magic. We recognize that's probably not what patrons
But
really
where's
want.
Harry Potter?
Right. So we know that they probably really want either the book or the movies. So we've done a lot of tuning of the relevancy. And it's tuned pretty much the same in Aspen and Taika. Aspen's done a little bit more to change it. But it does give you those books, and then the movies, and then all of the related.
Yeah, I will say I use this as an example in trainings, this Harry Potter search, and I think on our staff search, you have to go to like the third results page before you actually see a Harry Potter book. So again, I mean, you can do things with filters, filter by the author, stuff like that, but that's all extra work that maybe we're comfortable as, well, not, at least we put up with it as staff. But if we start asking patrons to do that, they're just not going to use the catalog.
So, how many of you are frontline staff? Yeah, you help people boots on the ground, right? How handy is it for the catalog to just give you tools that you need to find a book, find a video. Yeah, it's great. When the catalog is. There are some built-in features that you can read about here. We are going to exemplify two of those, which is novel lists and reading levels. But the others you can see. Oh, go back to that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You can see the read-alike functionality. Sorry, I can't quite read it, but those are very handy. And you know, if I like content, these other people write things like that. Those are so invaluable. And if also if you're on the front line, that's great. Try to teach patrons to use this, of course, because you're helping them. Both.
Yeah, and the way this is working is this is based off the titles that patrons rated. So you don't want to use things like reading history because just because I've got something in my reading history doesn't A, that I read it, B, that I liked it, or C, that I want more things like it. But if I rate something as 5 stars, I probably want it. We're using a combination of novelist data as well as information within the MARC records to get that. So, and you can do things like on the homepage then, if somebody is logged in, when they're browsing the catalog, they can see a list of recommendations for them. So the catalog is always personalized to them. They're always getting new stuff.
So my favorite of these is novelist. So you just start with a search for something, because you know, when I was I'm no longer frontline staff in the library, but I would have these nice ladies come up and say, "I love cozy mysteries. What do you recommend?" And then I'd be like, "Yeah, okay. I'm a librarian. I should answer this, even though I've never read one of these books before." So we would pull out the old copy of Genre Reflection. So we're like thumbing through the index of this book, not super efficient. This makes it so much easier because as frontline staff, there's no way you're going to read everything, be aware of every style. You just don't have time to do that. So if you can just get somebody to say they like something, like the Harry Bosch series, you could do a search that comes up. Then you go ahead and there's a thing where you can get similar series from novelists. There's also an option for similar titles and similar authors. So and because it's novelists, you can see there's descriptions there. It's curated by librarians. I know when I've done some of these demos, some people have been like, well, I wouldn't really recommend that for this particular series, but at least it's something that there's some sort of connection being made by somebody making a choice, not just an algorithm, but actually somebody making some of these linkages. And with the descriptions popping up right like this, it's very easy to get somebody interested in that. And then all you have to do is just click on that series. It'll, like if it's Jack Reacher you want to go to, you click on that, and then you're off and running. You can find that material for them really quickly. And again, you don't have to be an expert on everything. The other thing that our libraries find pretty useful is this reading levels, because I did mention we have schools, but we also have public libraries that work with the schools, and in the summer there's school lists that libraries have to read. So the first thing that comes up is you can see some information right here from that has AR as well as Lexile information. So that we have that turned on to display in the record itself. So that's a good point right there to find stuff. But a lot of times you get these students come in and they're just like, I don't really care what I have to read. I know I have to read something and it has to be in this range of points or measure or whatever. So we have a way to also search where we can put in, like if they're looking for just an AR point value for something, you can do that search, find the full list of items, and then find something that's on shelf or order something in. So that makes it a whole lot easier to get those needs met for those students. And hopefully they actually find something and, you know, develop that lifelong love of reading. Doesn't always happen.
So search suggestions are also super important, both for people that only know part of the title. So We've got type aheads as you go through and start typing Harry Potter. It'll give you a bunch of different suggestions of things that you might want to read, based in this case in Aspen off of all of the titles and subjects and authors within it. So it's a great way for people that don't necessarily know exactly what they're doing. You get those type aheads to help with spelling and searches. We also do search corrections. So here we see we've searched for Chronicles with an A of Narnia, and it will go through and do exactly what Google or Amazon will do.
I've never spelled it that way.
Automatically correct that search. If you do want to see your incorrect search, you can click on that and it will give you additional suggestions as well. So, and that works for anything where it winds up not getting results, it'll try to correct it.
So this one we went through and compared, like what is on the Koha system currently, what's on Pika, and what's on Aspen Discovery. So we went through some of like the big new resource players, and we knocked them out. So we said for Hoopla, in Koha, currently you can import records, but integration is coming, which will allow the user to also check out and place holds on things for people. In Pika and Aspen, you can currently do that. Overdrive is, I think, the common denominator. Everyone plays nicely with Overdrive. RB Digital, again, Koha can integrate and you can check out and search for items, place holds. Pika, just records currently.
Yeah, so to explain that, basically what we do with any e-content, no matter what it is, even if there's not an API, we load those records directly into Pika, and we don't have any of that on loaded into Koha, actually. So whether it's something like an RB Digital collection, or it's just like some ebook titles that somebody got free with books they purchased, because we've done a few of those recently, instead of loading that into the staff side, we're keeping it all on our discovery layer.
RB Digital Magazines is a separate entity, and I believe graphic novels also fall into that as well. And those currently are just records for Koha and Pika, but Aspen does have integration via the API for circulation. Yep. Cloud Library or Biblioteca, whatever they go by these days, 3M.
Not 3M.
Not 3M anymore. Integration with Koha, so inline results, and you can check things out and see that information in your account. And then Pika just records, Aspen Discovery full integration. And then EDS or EBSCO's Discovery Service. That's a way for users to search that information. Koha uses a plugin, so your users can actually search the EDS platform along with your catalog records. And then I'll let you all talk about the integration for that.
Yeah, so for both Pika and Aspen, what it will do is you can do a search. It's limited just because, so as soon as you find a record, it's going to just take you straight over to EBSCO. Yeah, it's certainly something I want to work on more and make it fancier.
And then the last one we just threw in, like Freeing, Canopy. These are ones that people ask about all the time. They currently don't have APIs. So the only option right now is to upload records into the system.
Great. You remember that 10-year shopping list? Yeah. One of the things at the top was one-stop shopping experience. So why do we want our patrons to go and place holds on things in Koha and renew their hold or renew their checkout, etc. And then they want to search for an item, but they don't find it in Koha. But there's a little the icon at the top that says click here. No, it's okay. Back up. Anyway, they click the icon that says click here to look in RB Digital, click here to look in Overdrive, and then it shows you another silo of information, but it's not integrated. No. Well, so then they have to go and check out on Overdrive site, and then they have to go to RB Digital site, and they have to do, you don't check out your books in a different, you don't check out your books in a different, at a different desk than you do your DVDs, your audiobooks, etc. This So you can see here, it's integrated right in there. And Koha does a great job with some of these, like this was saying with Overdrive, common denominator, does a very good job. You can do that with Overdrive. But all of these are in disparate collections, and you can check out the status. I'm sorry, check out. You can examine the status and you can check it out or you hold it.
And in Koha too, even Overdrive, you can do RB Digital and Cloud Library checkouts and holds from the Koha OPAC as long as your user is authenticated in the system.
Sorry. So we are a small consortium compared to Ben's SPCAT. We only have 3 branches, but we're able to have kind of a different flavor, if you would, of the OPAC of this Aspen Discovery. The Shane County libraries, they have different colors and different branding and whatnot, but also it focuses on just their collection. You can find out stuff that's in the County library, what we have, but there's a different portal for the Shane County libraries versus the County libraries.
Well, and as far as us, we need, I mean, we're larger as far as number of libraries, but our staff is like 2 full-time and a part-time. So we need the ability to do all that customization. We need a strong support as well. So that's critical for us. But the versatility of the back end that Mark talked about earlier is really what makes this work for us, where we can do a lot of different things. Like just as an example, we have like our state library does book club kits, and they're using that. Now, none of those can be requested through Koha. They're only through Pika, but there's an automated message that pops up that says, "Oh, come to the state library and pick up your books," when they actually get sent out on the courier. So we're working right now to get that modified so it's very clear that no, we will send that out, because that message works great for all our other libraries, but we have this weird setup for our state library in the specific collection. So that needs to be tailored, and they're working on it right now.
Okay, so in our area, we have a lot of rural communities, and it's important to have a repository with local history. Okay, digitized photos. In our collection, we have probably 20,000 or so photos. And the way that they're housed at the University of Utah, they have a great system and whatnot, but if you're an academic, you can do that really well. But what if you're, just like I said, what if you're a grandparent, you just want to show up with your parents? You can search in the library catalog. It's something that's accessible.
So Pika has a digital archive as well that is real. Our SPCAT libraries haven't participated in it yet, but a lot of the Marvett libraries do. And one of my favorite examples is, if you're familiar at all with the 10th Mountain Division, they trained at Camp Hale right outside of Vail. So that Vail Public Library has a great collection of photos, interviews, all sorts of stuff, video, and that stuff's uploaded. So if you're searching for like Camp Hale or World War II, just in, you can do a specific search in the archive, but there is an Explore More feature that pops up when you do those type of searches. And if you're a student looking for like primary resources for stuff, that's going to be the easiest day you've ever had, is writing your report on Camp Hale, because all that, there's just a wealth of information there, and then it creates citations and stuff like that. Super handy stuff, but also if you're not a student, pretty interesting stuff as well. So we're looking forward to being able to get our libraries to participate in adding content, and that eventually feeds all the way up to the Digital Public Library of America, which is pretty nice too. So it doesn't just become a local library has this archive, it becomes statewide in an accessible way, and then national as well.
Let me show you how this works in our library. Thank you, Bob. So if you can go and turn the Aspen Discovery right into the archives. You can say, I just want to look at these collections. But also, if you put in a search term, there are
Two, what I did is I put good or good, and there are two results that show up in the results list. And then third in line is this explore more deal here, right? And you can look at historical photos, or you can even look at all of these here. You can either go in kind of the silo that I was talking about of here's archival, or you can, it's a discovery tool. See how that's very valuable. It doesn't just put it down at the bottom, but it gives you see it right up front.
And digital archives are so easy to get lost in the library website. So it's so much fun. I love exploring all of that content. So I have a lot of fun.
Let's get these collections into the hands of the people who
Yeah.
use the library.
Well, and it's all great, unique community content.
So website widgets. So what this is it's the ability to take some iframe code and generate that, and be able to integrate a carousel like this into the website directly. So this is one of our branches, Pines and Plains, that I just pulled a screenshot right off their website, and they use WordPress, super easy integration, and you can see that this carousel has all these different categories that you can browse through on the tabs on top, and then they also it will cycle through as well. And when you click on any of these, it takes you directly into the catalog. So it's a great way of featuring new content in a way that doesn't have to be curated anyway. Now you could create lists and then have it set up that way, and you could curate exactly what shows up on these carousels, but these are all automated.
And these all integrate with just an iframe. So it works on, we haven't had any library websites that it doesn't work on. Super easy to add.
HTML.
Yeah, so you just paste in a little bit HTML snippet. There's a bigger snippet if you have a responsive site and want your widgets to be responsive. There's, I think, 7 different varieties of widgets now. So you can have a single title, you can have the list like this, you can have a text-only list, you can have them scroll or not scroll. So there's a lot of customization here to really personalize it for your library. And you can have as many of these as you want. So you can have something on your teens page and something on your home page. So everybody gets something a little different. So how to get started. So if you want to get started with Aspen Discovery, there's the link for it. Or I'm here for the whole conference, so feel free to just grab me and I'm happy to give you a little bit bigger demo or talk more to you.
Here's my business card if you're interested.
Yeah.
So Pika, we listed that on there. Right now, Pika is going through a process where they're not adding any discovery partners. So that's your guy right there.
But we're certainly welcome, or we're certainly willing to testify about it. Like you've heard us today. If you want to talk to us or have us talk to people that Ben and I are more than willing. I guess I'm speaking for Ben. I'm pretty sure he's willing as well as I am to talk about it.
Yeah, I talked with Sam way back when before, and I believe Pueblo has just started with this recently. So I've talked with both of them about it prior to their making their move. So yeah, tell you all the pluses and minuses of it, but it's largely been a great thing for us. Big plus. Solved a huge issue that we had with where we weren't certain. And I'll tell you one thing. We noticed when we kind of did like a slow rollout, and this is probably about 5 years ago, where some libraries went live with Pika and others weren't. We could immediately see in their hold stats that holds went up, like significantly, like doubled for a lot of libraries, just because you create that access for patrons, and then they will use it. They like getting materials, and when it's more of an experience they're used to, like shopping on Amazon, something like that, where you just click and then you get it, then they will use it. They will use it a lot. They will be happy. So yeah, we noticed an immediate jump in our resource sharing just by providing better access.
And for any library where Bywater is hosting or supporting you, we work directly with Mark and PICA to make sure that we can get them the records and the patron data so that they can copyright the discovery.
Yeah, and it's been really great working with Bywater. So the process is super easy for you. Like basically, it can be set up within around a month, 48 weeks, depending on library. So you can get it going great.
Weekly meetings with Mark and great.
Yeah. Get everything on track. Okay, great.
So putting up our contact information again, but does anybody have any questions? Yes. Yes.
It does. So yeah.
Yeah, the question. Yeah, if you already have novelists selected. I don't even know, do you need the code?
Yeah, you,
I think Koha has the code and then, I don't know.
yeah, we got it.
It was not hard.
Yeah, the other thing it'll do is display series in series order. So for people looking to say, I just read X, what is the next book in the series? You can just go straight to it.
Yeah, so stuff like synthetic stuff like that, you still pay for that sort of stuff and it integrates. So you're not necessarily circumnavigating that, but at least it's a good integration into the discovery layer.
Any other questions?
They were based, so I think the fork was version 1.3 or something. So part of it is just different target markets. Part of what happened with Pika was it's a lot more complicated to set up than Viewfind. There's a lot more moving parts. So there's just a lot of configuration that makes it a little bit trickier to set up.
Viewfind also is more for academics. Is that correct?
It is
Well,
primarily focused.
I think
Not as much anymore. But
the community is very different for Viewfind, so it's not driving it in the ways that that Mark ultimately drove it for a consortia. So kind of waiting on all the community to catch up to the vision probably was not going to be very cost effective. So it kind of, yeah, so it just made, in that sense, it made more sense to just run with it in a particular direction than it did to, because that element isn't there where there's all these people who want it to be a community. That just doesn't exist for Viewfind in the same way.
to answer your question,
Yeah, I mean, it would be great if there were a ton of other marks, you know, out there doing all this development, and it could grow even faster, and it was open source. Because yeah, like us being on Pika, we are in an environment where we are reliant on in almost a proprietary model, even though it is open source. So we're reliant on our vendor to prioritize stuff, and our vendor has voting members that Mark mentioned. We are not a voting member, so we have less of a say in where things go. So yeah, I would much rather this be exactly the same as Koha. Unfortunately, it isn't.
so we have one of the things that we're bad at is physical content versus online. If people come in the library, use it. Most of them are looking for the private library without it. And people don't want it. Or some people are looking for both. And you know, we can have things tapped out where people have to ask the right questions, or have all the right filters on the side, that people are just going to look for a search box.
Man.
Usually when they're looking for steps down, how does work
think that's where the record grouping comes into play, because if you were in, Christopher's going to pull this up, but when you do a search and you're finding something, if it lists the book first, and then you get into other formats, including digital content. So if there is an ebook version, it's listed there. So if I'm somebody who just wants the book, I just place hold on the book, and I ignore the rest. So if you're looking for something specific digitally, you can see this available online. So there's a lot of options, but yeah, like this one just has a book edition. If there was an ebook edition, we would see that just in the record grouping. So I think it doesn't. It's easy for those people to just ignore the rest of the list of formats if they're just looking for a physical item.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the usability testing that we were doing too, was making sure that people understood those distinctions. And the record grouping really has helped a lot to make sure people understand that. So
yeah, so there's a great example where you can see the e-audiobooks listed. And if I don't care about that, the e-audiobook or the ebook, and I just want to place a hold on the book, it's pretty clear how I'm going to do that. So, I mean, the problem you bring up, I don't think there's ever going to be a perfect solution where, because you would have to predict the search of the particular patron at the time they're doing before. So you can't do it, but I think this probably does about as good as anything of just laying it out in a way where you're not sifting through stuff as much, because it all compacts into this group record.
I like this a lot better. It doesn't count everything together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and a lot of times they don't even understand that there is an audio CD version, but it's buried down on page 2. If you see the 18th abduction on page 1, you assume that there's not more later.
Well, and when you do a search this way, and like I said, it compacts everything into these group records, you're not going to like the third. You would never have to do it. You're finding your results pretty quickly. And then if you're looking for things like when they make a DVD, like a movie out of something, this one doesn't. Oh, this does have a thing. It's pretty easy to just click on that just to get to just those things about as well as anything out there, because those results you usually do have to scroll down to, but it's pretty easy to just click movies, and it's using a language that's a lot more familiar to patrons, so there's no like video recording like we see in the 245H or stuff like that.
And that will also, like if you have Canopy, it'll group the Canopy with the DVD. So,
Yeah.
Another question.
That never happened.
Yeah. Yeah, so if we open the editions here, let's.
Yeah, so my
depending-
Tom Sawyer example from earlier has those myriad editions, and so this kind of eliminates that question a little bit, because what you're trying to, what the people dealing with the patrons are like, if we just all put it on one record, won't that be easier? But there are actually, there might be situations where somebody wants something specific, and then they get like, this little paperback version of something that maybe that isn't what they're looking for, and they're not happy. So this kind of allows for both of those to interplay, where you can do what the catalogers want to do and have stuff on separate records, but then for the majority of patrons that don't care, it's going to, all you have to do is just hit this place hold button if you want generally, if you don't care, but if you want this edition specifically, you place hold on that one.
And this is again where like each library can be customized. We can also pull that large print out so it's its own format.
Yeah, that's what we do.
So you can see book, audiobook on CD, e-audiobook, ebook, and then large print. So, and that's just.
Yeah, we prefer that out because that's an example of an edition that you either really want it or you really don't. So we want that to be visible.
Is it aspencat.info.org?
Yeah. Yep.
Catalog. .aspencat.info.
Yep.
Just
This is our general. I mean, this is our general full catalog. One of the things that we've got this Aspen Cat logo up here and this color scheme, but that's one thing we do. Libraries, if they want to, can customize that. But yeah, here's an example of that large print being very clear, pulled out. Now I will say you can catalog badly enough that it will screw up even the best designed system. So this doesn't save your bacon for everything, but it definitely improves a lot of issues.
How do staff log in and customize? Do you do that, or does the vendor have to do
It depends, and I think there's some differences between Pica and Aspen. I think Mark's made some changes to make it so it's more on the library itself does more customization.
It essentially you log in and like there are system preferences, kind of like in Koha, similar type of thing. They're grouped into different categories. And so I want this right here, and I want this. These are the search groups that I want. This is what I want done with this. Really, I mean, you have to understand what's going on in the back end to understand. But once you have that understanding, then
and part of the setup process is going through all of those options,
Yeah.
setting them up for your library,
Sure.
and free to make whatever tweaks you want.
Yeah, I think you were telling me that like doing color schemes and stuff
Right.
like that is customizable for Aspen. For Pica, we put in a support ticket, and then they do it, and we approve it, and that sort of thing. Still pretty easy on our end, but it would be nice to just be able to pop in there and do things ourselves.
It's yes and no. So no in production, yes, that's what I'm actually working on right now in my development machine. So different between Aspen and Pica. So in both cases, you can set up Google Analytics. Aspen's got a lot of
we have the option to do Google Analytics, but we chose not.
Aspen collects a lot of anonymous stats on just what is being used. So how many people are using it, how many holds are being placed, that kind of thing. It's not tracking too far backwards or at all backwards, but you can see how many holds are happening in each of the different e-content sources, the physical collection, that kind of thing, as well as how many page views. And that.
I believe Pica recently upgraded its integration with Google Analytics. I haven't had a chance to play with it much. Our libraries tend to not ask for that sort of information, but I could definitely see, obviously, some of the other Pica libraries are asking for it because they put some effort into improving that functionality.
One of the things that with that if people are using that
True, yeah, that'd be valuable information.
So like you're tracking placing holds on the full record page versus search results, or
Well, are they going to Overdrive directly, or are they using
Oh,
a
yeah.
search layer?
yeah.
You know,
So
like
certainly you will get a count of here's all of the holds that are placed in Overdrive. You can subtract those then from your counts in Overdrive itself. It's extra work, but the stats are at least there. Was there another question?
there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up that a little, this is a really simple fix. But a lot of our patrons have a hard time with on the shelf. Like, oh, so that means that first fix here is something that we probably just need to reword. Sometimes that can be.
No, that's fine.
It is open source.
Yeah. So I am pricing for hosting as well as service. Monthly updates. The website has a list of all of the enhancements done each month, and they're numerous. So the fairest way I found to price, and I'm open to discussion, is based off the revenue reported to IMLS, so it's a factor of that. And it ranges from 7,500 up. So the goal is that it's pretty affordable even for smaller libraries, and even for consortia. Basically, just add them all up. If there's special circumstances, I'm happy to work with people. And then there's an implementation fee as well, which covers all of the training, all of the setup. Hosting's included in the annual fee. There's a little discount if you feel like hosting it yourself, but I kind of recommend not. So. Sure. Yep.
Absolutely.
There's not. So Arlington has done a lot of work with, they've got a city development team that has built an app on top of Pika with all of the APIs. So Pika has all the APIs needed to, Pika and Aspen have the APIs needed to power a mobile app, but there's not one built yet. And it's one of those things that I'm strongly considering. It's just trying to figure out how to get it kind of one size fits all.
Is their app open source?
It is open source. So, and yeah. So, and I've talked with them a bunch about what we can do in terms of that.
I can tell you from our perspective, prior to going with Pika, it had been on our list to find an app. And we kept on not liking at all either the price or the product. And so when we finally went with Pika, the responsive design really solved all those problems for us. It works really well.
Koha's really
I can, demonstrate on my phone for anybody that wants to see it, but it does a really nice job. And I don't think we would, even if there were an option to have an app, I don't think we would pay a dime for it because it just doesn't seem necessary. It's just another different place that somebody has to go and download something. Whereas if you just type in the website, you get all the functionality you want and it displays really cleanly.
We chose not to go with an app too. Responsive. And this is when we were still on Koha before we deployed the Aspen discovery layer. We just didn't want to go with an app. Responsive website is enough. Yay, we done? I think they're like, okay, we want to break. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for coming.